Welcome to The Favorites, presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. We are an Action Network podcast. I'm Brandon Kravitz, back at it with my peoples, the first lady of the pod, Kendra Middleton, the prime minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey, whose college football season just ended. On today's episode, we've got our plant the flag game for the conference championship games, Kendra's deepest, darkest thoughts, and Evan's Tuesday primer. You can't start a betting week without it. Only 3 games left. Kendra, is it time to rejoice or is it time to cry?
I thought that I was going to be excited to get a break and for the weather to get warmer and everything. But last week, when there was no football on like the normal primetime slots, I got really sad. So I'm going to go with sad just because I do miss football when it's not on, but I also miss the routine of football when it's not on.
Yeah, tend to agree with that. I miss the full slates. We've got 2 great games left and then a 2-week build-up for what will hopefully be a game that doesn't involve Jarrett Stidham or any backup quarterback action. Stuckey, what about you? How do you reconcile with this time of year? Any emotions flowing through that noggin?
I mean, it's stunning to watch like a national title, just one football game. The commercials are just, it feels like,
Incessant. Yes.
yeah, especially because you're used to watching like a million games at once. But it's college basketball season for me, so um, I'll have that feeling in April. Um, so I just kind of shift my like the preparation now for football games is so much easier. So I just take all that time dedicated to college basketball. But really, we're looking into just 4 teams now. There's no college football. So that's in the rearview mirror. And I am one of the games this weekend is just like there's not much, there's not a ton to break down. Like you just have to make a decision on if you want to bet the Patriots Broncos game, what do you think the drop off is from Knicks to Stidham, who hasn't played in a game in 750 days? If you think it's too much, you're betting the Broncos. If you don't think it's enough, you're probably betting the Patriots. Um, and like that's kind of the decision point. It's not like you're going and breaking down what the Broncos offense looked like with Stidham this year. There's just nothing. So that one isn't like there's not a lot of time to be spent on that game. Seahawks Rams pretty interesting, being that it is the 3rd meeting. We'll be talking about both those games a lot, but yeah, I now allocate most of my time now to college basketball. So I will plug Big Bets on Campus podcast. I will be making my return this week, later this week, breaking down the weekend card. We'll have live shows coming up either starting this week or next. So yeah, I won't have that like that void feeling until after the college basketball national championship.
For people that are wanting to add college basketball to their repertoire this time of year, since we are a couple of months away from March, is now the time to hop in if you have not bet any college basketball yet, or are you already too late to the party to really have any idea of what's going on?
I mean, I always tell people that if you wanted to like if you're just like starting from scratch, and the college basketball market is much tougher to beat. I mean, every year it gets tougher to beat, like all markets, but especially in college basketball, I think it was like exponentially easier to beat 5 years ago. The tax on certain spots and just the market is just smarter overall. But I, I always tell people just like, look, you think there's a lot of teams in college football. There are triple that in college basketball. So I always tell people if you're like just diving in, you know, and if you're just doing it recreationally for fun, who cares? Just bet the TV games. But if you want to like just try and get an edge or try and handicap these games, like just focus on one conference. Much easier to do than trying to like stare at a board and follow every single team like I try to do. Most people, you know, you have a job, you don't have time to do that, but just take one conference, follow it very closely, the ebbs and flows of teams, who's been getting lucky, injuries, and you kind of just get a feel for teams. And if you just focus on one conference, and you know, there might be some even more opportunities for some of the lower level conferences, although those might not be the most appetizing for people to choose, but that would be my suggestion. Or, you know, follow someone that you find is that, you know, gives free picks, that has a good track record, um, and follow along. But you want to be in it for a long haul. It's a grind, and there's going to be horrible beats. Like college basketball is the beats are just incredible. So you have to be able to stomach them, move on quickly. But that would be my advice for everyone. And tune into Big Bets on Campus. Our weekend previews. We'll talk futures every week. Myself, I think my guy Root is going to be doing them with me as well. Who's super sharp. But there's a lot of resources out there too. So yeah, just tune into the podcast. More to come there.
I am excited to get raked over the coals during March Madness, but definitely pay attention to everything Stuckey's got going on there. One more thought on the amateur level. Kendra, did you ever think we'd see a day where Indiana would be hoisting a national championship before, I mean, fit in your favorite NFL team here, the Cleveland Browns? I mean, I never thought I'd see this in my life. Here we are, deserving champion before several of the only 32 NFL teams have ever hoisted the Lombardi Trophy.
I can't say that I'm surprised because I feel like in college, if you're really dedicated to spending the money now, you can kind of put together any kind of team that you want. Yes, they got lucky not having, I wouldn't say lucky, they worked very hard and had very good game plans, but lucky in the sense that not having a single five-star recruit paid off for them with that ability to have the underdog mentality. But I have to say, it was a way better game than I thought it would be. I'll give Miami their flowers. However, I have seen some tweets flying today, and I'm not sure if they're real or not. And if they are, I'm very disappointed. Apparently, Carson Beck did not shake Mendoza's hand after the game. Is this true, Stuckey?
I don't know, to tell you the truth. I know that Fletcher got a lot of for the. I think he threw like a punch, but
I saw that.
He
I did
found
see that.
Mendoza and embraced him, um, which was good to see. But I don't know. I didn't see. I didn't see any of the handshakes after. I officially became a parent after the game. I got pooped on for the first time.
Mm.
Changing a
Welcome.
diaper, like a
Whoa.
so my wife's
Yeah.
usually the diaper changer. I wasn't ready for that. Um,
It's one of the things people don't tell you when you have a kid is the sludge that comes out of these kids. It's the weirdest thing. It's,
Thank you for my free birth control today, boys.
you're welcome.
no, I think the what Indiana obviously kind of it's a symbol of the changing landscape in college football, right? This is a sport that's been dominated by a handful of teams every year for a decade for since the college football playoff started. And now, you know, with everyone being able to pay, and you don't just have these teams that are your perennial powers, there's going to be opportunities for other teams to rise up. I mean, look at a team like Vanderbilt. You know, they were a perennial basement bottom feeder. And now, you know, they were right on the doorstep of making the college football playoff. You have Indiana, I mean, one of the most losingest programs in college football history, now winning a national title. I mean, unfathomable if you would have said that 5 years ago. So I think it's good for the sport. The sport still has some things to figure out as far as regulating all of this and maybe fixing the calendar a bit. But I think that it's kind of fitting that it was a team like Indiana in this new college football world. And then applying it to the NFL, it's, we saw this year the impact of new coaches and how much of an impact they can have on a team in just one season. And we're going into a crazy coaching cycle. I think the NFC North is the only division without a coaching change. Don't quote me on that. Evan, can you check that real quick? But so there's a ton of coaching changes. But we saw this past year, so we'll see which teams are going to, really benefit from those coaching changes. But we just saw this past year, Ben Johnson had the Bears on, the doorstep of an NFC Championship game. Look at the Seahawks, the 1 seed, and what McDonald has done there with that defense. We saw the Jags with Liam Cohen, the impact of him leaving Tampa, going to Jacksonville. So there's countless examples of the impact that coaching and, you can go down to coordinators as well, can have on a football team. And Cignetti is, the poster child for that. Well, here's a Cignetti shirt. What a job he's done. But yeah, I think that it's kind of the year of coaching, and we have some really good coaches left in the NFL playoffs. I mean, McVay, McDonald is, that's football porn. And you can go back the first meeting, McDonald dominated, and which is funny because McDonald dominated McVay in the first meeting, but the Rams won. And then McVay dominated McDonald in the second meeting, and the Seahawks won. You can even go back to Baltimore. McVay dominated McDonald when the Rams went to Baltimore, and Baltimore had the #1 defense, but Baltimore won in overtime. So interesting to note. But that is like football porn, McDonald versus McVay. And what makes that tough to break down is that they're like, McVay is a tendency breaker, right? In high leverage games. So he'll come up with something that, that McDonald's not going to be expecting. And I mean, you look at the 2 meetings this year, they had their first meeting where they didn't have much success, to the second meeting, they completely flipped their use of 13 personnel. And that was one of the things late in the season that was just something that no teams could match up with. The 3 tight ends on the field. They didn't have a ton of success against Seattle, as much as relative to other teams, but they had success in that second meeting, even though Seattle is built to stop 13 personnel because of Nick Emmanwori. And they ran at Emmanwori. One of the things they really did well in that second meeting, they just ran right at him. But then last week, McVay abandoned 13 personnel, went back to his roots of 11 personnel. I don't know why. I mean, the Bears are one of the worst defenses in the league.
I would think it was weather related.
But like, you would want to go heavier personnel, more tight ends, and run at the Bears. I mean, the Bears have they had the highest explosive play rate allowed of any defense against 13 personnel. So I don't know if that was to throw off the Seahawks a bit. I don't know, but I just don't know what to expect from McVay. But I do know that you can probably expect a curveball formation wise. So I'm looking forward to that. And McDonald came out and said, because they gave up 581 yards. I'm rambling, by the way, but they gave up 581 yards in week 16 to the Rams, who didn't have Dotson, didn't have Adams. And that was on a short week. And the Seahawks were completely healthy outside of their left tackle, who might miss this game too. But McDonald came out and said, we tried too many new things on a short week. So what are his adjustments? Because they were kind of lost in that game. So super interesting game. I'm really looking forward to the coaching matchup in that game. That's a long-winded answer and saying, long-winded way of saying Sig did a great job.
Yeah, go Hoosiers. I don't know if you guys can tell which game Stuckey is more excited about, Rams, Seahawks, or Patriots, Broncos. The coaching clinic between those two on the NFC side is going to be great. That was one of the things. I'm glad you brought up coaching. I do want to get to a couple of the new hires, but I was looking at the commonalities between the 4 teams that are still in the race. And solid quarterback play is, of course, always going to be part of it. And that kind of gets thrown out the window because we have a Stidham game. Defense, all these teams rank top 11 in EPA per play, and coaching. Those were the two most common factors that I could find. These teams are kind of all over the place when you look at things like third down conversion percentage. How good are they in the red zone? How good are they at defending the red zone? How good are they in terms of running the ball? These teams are kind of all over the board. But in terms of what do they have in common, defense and coaching. Is there anything else, Kendra, off the top of your head that you think I'm missing as far as key traits that all four teams have that are still in the hunt?
Um, that's a good question that I wasn't prepared for you to ask me. I'm gonna I'm gonna say I don't think so. The only thing that I really kind of am looking at outside of everything that Stuckey just kind of mentioned and that you mentioned, Matt Stafford and McVay having the experience piece is kind of the way that I'm approaching that game. I know that a lot of people are going to look at defense. I know a lot of people are going to look at who's injured. I think the experience piece is the biggest part about it, which is another reason we can talk about it later, like that I'm looking at maybe the Broncos as well because of Sean Payton.
Yeah,
So, yeah, go
I
ahead,
would
Kendra.
also say that Sean, I mean, I mentioned coaching. I'm excited about coaching the other game, but I'm also excited about what Peyton will come up with here, right? He has a blank slate with no tendencies. Like there's the Patriots aren't going to know what to expect. Although, what makes that game really interesting, Peyton handpicked Stidham, I think for a reason. He obviously saw something that he liked. And I think it was his first signing, his first free agent signing after he got to Denver. But McDaniels also knows Stidham very well, right? He was with him in New England, went with him to Vegas. So he knows his strengths and weaknesses. So how does that play
And
out as
Bo and
well?
Jarrett have known each other forever because of Auburn.
Yeah. So that's certainly interesting. And I will say the we still don't know like where to like I still am not fully confident in how good the Patriots are. And we're going in the conference championship weekend. I mean, they've played backup quarterbacks, hurt offenses or backup quarterbacks all year. And that's what happened in the playoffs. They played, a team without its two Pro Bowl tackles and a hurt backfield. And then they played the Texans, who didn't have their starting right tackle. They lost their starting tight end in the first quarter. They didn't have their starting wide receiver, their top wide receiver, one of the best in the NFL. But then this week they're going to get Stidham. And then the other thing is they haven't played their schedule of opposing defenses was also a joke. They played like no top 10 defenses the entire year outside of the Browns, and the Browns on the road aren't the same defense. And then they finally faced two top five defenses. And Drake May has six fumbles and two interceptions and has not looked great. I mean, his EPA per play is right there with Stroud for the playoffs. So, can the Denver defense cause the New England offense to have some of the same issues and cause turnovers? If so, then they might not have to hit a huge number, especially if their defense can give them a short field or even put a score up on the board. So, but I'm excited to see what Peyton draws up and see how he's generally a really good coach against the blitz. And that's what the Patriots have been doing lately. I mean, they blitzed the last 4 weeks 40%, 43%, 44%, 45%. That's how they're generating pressure. Stroud's really bad against the blitz. The Chargers have no offensive line. The thing that Stidham has going for him this week is his offensive line. He's one of, if not the best offensive lines in the NFL. So that's huge for a backup, right? Like just a good play caller and a really good offensive line. We'll see the situation at center. Wattenberg might be back. Forsythe got hurt. He might be ready. We'll see. But having a really good offensive line at home, Denver's not an easy place to play at also. But that's huge because you go back, he started 2 games in 2023 with the Broncos. That Broncos offensive line was horrible. They were 31st in pressure allowed. 2022 Raiders, and both those offenses were bad, like 26th DVOA, 25th DVOA. 2022 Raiders, they were 26th in pressure allowed. This Broncos offensive line is one of the best in terms of pressure allowed. So that should be a big step and just like an area of comfort for Stidham. And I'd expect the Patriots aren't going to be able to get a ton of pressure without blitzing. So what is Peyton's answer to that blitz? Like, what does his screen game look like? That's what I'm looking forward to there.
Before we get back into the games, we were talking about coaching and how impactful these new coaches can be. We had some big time coaching movement across the league since the last time we spoke. Robert Saleh to the Titans, Kevin Stefanski to the Atlanta Falcons, Sean McDermott has been fired in Buffalo, Halfley hired in Miami. Kendra, your favorite and least favorite move so far? So it can be a hiring, a firing, any of the above.
I'm gonna say my least favorite is Robert Saleh going to the Titans. You can't convince me that their feud and them hating each other did not fuel the Titans wanting to get him, because it's an easy get up spot twice a season for both teams now. And if you think about it in the long term, who else is there to hate in the division? Indianapolis is going to suck. The Texans are now struggling with their CJ Stroud situation. Wanting to hate the Jags and beat the Jags is probably the number one thing that you want to consider when hiring someone right now. So I hate that I have to cheer against him twice a season now, and maybe even three times a season, considering how often we are seeing these divisional matchups in the postseason. And my favorite, can I say that it has to be McDermott, just because of the fact that his resume and his like win percentage is really kind of laughable, and it was just how is the GM surviving? How are they just not blowing everything up and starting over?
It is kind of funny how time is a flat circle, because I've seen others reference this, that John Elway, very similar stylistically to Josh Allen, and is a guy that really struggled to win as good as he was early on in his career. And Dan Reeves was his coach. They moved off of him, hired Mike Shanahan, and then he started winning Super Bowls. And there's this, and by the way, that documentary is out right now on one of the many streaming services that's out there. And so people are reliving that. And then we're also living that in the moment and maybe that's what happens here is, I think Sean McDermott, like Dan Reeves, was a good coach, but they needed a shakeup. They needed to do something different. I'm curious to see what direction they go in here. Stuckey, any thoughts on those two?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was time for McDermott, but I mean, what about Bean? Like the roster construction has been so poor for the Bills. Um, I
And
mean,
they're like promoting him allegedly as well.
yeah, I don't get that. But I do think McDermott's a good I think McDermott would be a great defensive coordinator somewhere. Um, but I mean, my least favorite is probably Halfley. Like you're bringing him in to Miami, which needs a rebuild, and like Halfley's only head coaching experience was at Boston College. Like I don't know if that's necessarily the best hire, but shocker, the Dolphins make a move that doesn't make sense.
Bingo on that one. The fact that all I'm hearing is he's a culture guy, like that's like saying the girl that you started dating has a good personality. That just means that she's probably ugly, and that's how it feels here.
And then, but my favorite is by far is Stefanski. I do think he's a good coach. I think he's a good offensive mind. I mean, look, this is the guy. He just got a raw deal. You're in Cleveland with the Watson contract, and it's Cleveland, and he still won what Coach of the Year twice. But just going from Raheem Morris to Stefanski, I think is a huge upgrade. I mean, Morris and that coaching staff was just so incompetent in so many different ways. Uh, and the Falcons have pieces. I mean, you know about their talent on offense. There's talent for days. That the skill positions, the offensive line is solid, and then we saw the defense this year take a major step forward because they were able to address their lack of edge rush and pressure in the draft, and they finally had a defense that could get pressure. And then you have some exciting other pieces. Bowman, Watts looks like a future All Pro. So that's an exciting team in a division that you just like. Can you imagine if the Falcons like they didn't? I mean, they finished tied for first, and they lost like three or four, maybe five games they should have won. That division is so gettable. If they just had like a competent coaching staff and special teams, And I think that they fixed the first one. I mean, that team wins 11 games this year, and they would not have been an easy out in the playoffs. So I think that was a really good hire by Blank.
We are about to hand out some actionable advice for this weekend's games in the NFL. Plant the flag games coming up, but first, a word from our very own Kendra Middleton.
The Favorites podcast is sponsored by DraftKings Sportsbook, and in partnership with DraftKings, our listeners are getting a great offer. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The next great touchdown is coming, and you can bet on it. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Pick 6 and have the shot to win cash prizes. To get started, use promo code FAVORITES when signing up with DraftKings. Again, use code FAVORITES when signing up and bet $5 to get $300 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours.
All right, Kendra, before we plant the flag, we've got Evan Abrams joining us as well for his weekly primer. What is on your mind today?
So we've been talking about coaching, and it's obviously the biggest kind of storyline this week, especially with the McDermott news and all of the hirings and everything going on, which if Udinski winds up going to the Browns, RIP, if you'd rather go to Cleveland than be with Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville, see ya pizza. However, this has been really bothering me because of the McDermott thing and everybody else. Would you rather be what would be worse or better on your mental health? Being fired for sucking or being fired as a scapegoat? Because I really don't know what I've been sitting here and I'm like, it would really suck to be fired for sucking, but also like how mad I would be just getting fired so somebody else can be protected for like whether it's politics or whatever I don't know what I would hate more. And it honestly kind of stresses me out a lot to think about, which is
I think I would rather be fired as a scapegoat, because if you suck, that's got to ding the confidence more than anything else. At least you can move forward, find another job, and feel like you are competent in the field that you're in. If you get fired because you suck, you have a lot of reevaluation that you've got to take into account.
But sometimes I don't know if people know they suck. So it's like ignorance is bliss. And that's the part of it that I argue with myself about, is like I feel like so many people just don't know that they suck. They blame somebody else.
For those people, and they would never answer it this way because they don't know they suck. So it's kind of like we're in this endless loop here. Those people should want to get fired because they suck, because then they can have an awakening, and that's a beautiful thing to have. So, perhaps, I don't know, maybe I'm even changing my answer. Maybe I'm worse at certain jobs than I realize, and I should be let go. Don't talk to the action overlords about this, but yeah, maybe that's the way to look, because there's no self-evaluation if you get fired as a scapegoat. So I don't know. I think I may have changed my answer. So, what about you, Stuckey? Because I talked myself into many circles here.
I don't even know what you're saying, but it kind of reminds me of like the better than average effect. Like 70% of people, I think somewhere around there, think that they have higher than average intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
So shout to those 30% that just know that they're not smart.
Amen.
So
I don't know. So
yeah, but I think I agree with your first take, Brandon.
Before I started
talking,
started sliding down the slide into vapid nothingness.
This is how I get to these places, though, is I just like talk myself into the depths of hell.
That's the thing, you have to take into account both sides here. So I immediately dismiss the fired because you suck thing, but there's at least merit to that. I think if you're someone that lacks self-awareness, that could be a beneficial thing for you to then be able to grab hold of what reality actually is. Is that a more succinct version of what we were looking for here?
I'll take it.
All right. Winner, chicken dinner. Let's plant the flag. Presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. We have 2 games to choose from, but thank you to the sports books like DraftKings that are out there that give us an endless buffet of things to choose from. I'll go ahead and get us started today because I'm going to choose from the derivative buffet. Patriots Broncos first half under will be where I plant my flag. I have not bet a side for either of these games yet, so I had to look off the board a little bit. Under 20.5 is the number that I'm looking at here. I just can't imagine that this is going to be an aggressively played game by either coach, especially early on. Vrabel has to know that he can park the bus for 4 quarters. Don't let the Broncos defense create momentum with turnovers like we've seen in some of these other games. And eventually just banking on the fact that Stidham is going to fold. On that same line of thinking, the Broncos are likely going to struggle to score, period, because of their quarterback play. Even with Bo Nix, they ranked 16th in the NFL in terms of first half points per game. 11.4 is what they were averaging with a better quarterback. And the Patriots defense has been lights out so far in the playoffs, averaging under 10 points per game in the postseason so far. Denver's defense, obviously elite, first in sacks, second in yards allowed, and all of those things. So I think we're going to see an insane effort from the Broncos defensively and a really low scoring game out of the gate between these two. Patriots Broncos under 20.5 is my plant the flag. Kendra?
We kind of talked about it a little bit on Sunday, and then Stuckey has talked a little bit about it today. But my thought process is definitely just that the Patriots played a really tough defense for the first time last week. Drake May has had some fumble problems this postseason. The Broncos defense, not that much of a drop off from the Texans, in my opinion. I think that if they can disturb Drake May from the beginning, the Broncos have a shot at covering this 5.5. I also, like I said, love the experience piece of Sean Payton. I think he's going to be prepared. I think Jarrett's going to be prepared. And I almost kind of think that I always prefer these situations where it's that cornered cat mentality. The Broncos kind of know that they have nothing and everything to play for at the same time, which I think I agree with what Stuckey said on Sunday, just takes so much pressure off of them and puts it all back on New England. And historically, like I mentioned Sunday, New England does not play well in Denver in the postseason. It's a really tough place to play. So I don't think that the 5.5 is going to get any better. I think if anything, it's going to get worse. So take the 5.5 on DraftKings while you can get it. I did it this morning. That's where I'm at.
Stuck?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Broncos too. It looks like it's coming down. I might play 5.5. I was waiting to see if we can get 6.5. I just wasn't sure where the market was gonna go with this. But I, I mean, like we just saw the Broncos close as what, 1.5 point favorites over the Bills. The Bills are power rated higher than the Patriots in market. I think the Bills are an overall better team, and I can't make the adjustment from Knicks. I mean, you mentioned like their offense, like 14th in points per game in first. Like their passing offense, I think, is like 14th or 15th DVOA. Like Knicks is like an average quarterback who has like above average flashes, but he's not elite. He's not in the elite tier. I can't make this drop off 7 points. That's crazy. And again, the Patriots going on the road. Denver is not an easy place to play in for an inexperienced quarterback. I mean, especially in January. I mean, the Broncos have only been home dogs in January 5 times in the past 25 years. They've covered all 5 games, including twice in the playoffs. They beat the Patriots, and they won as 7.5 point dogs with Tim Tebow as the quarterback over the Steelers a bit ago. Peyton, elite as a dog, 61, 42, and 2, 59%, 67% against the spread when catching over a field goal. And I just think that a lot of the intangibles are working in Denver's favor. You're at home. You have nothing to lose. All of the pressure is on the Patriots now, and they don't have film on your tendencies. And I, I think that uncertainty can work in their favor. If they can just put a couple of drives together and score in the red zone against the defense that's one of the worst in the league defending in the red zone. Before last week, they were giving up touchdowns on 95% of goal to go drives. 95%. I don't think they forced a field goal in the regular season in a goal to go situation. So they just finish off a couple of the drives you're able to put together, surprise them early, get the screen game going. Like this Patriots team, I mean, last week they looked awful. And Stroud was just that much worse. And they didn't even look great against the Chargers. It just Herbert was so bad. And the schedule, you can't not talk about it. It's the easiest schedule we've seen in 25 years, and then you could argue it's one of the easiest in playoff history. So, yeah, and look, if you look at Stidham, as I mentioned before, we only has 2 starts. It could be a complete disaster. It could, but I actually don't think he's that bad. I think he's like one of the better backups in the league. There's a reason why Peyton went and targeted him. But like he started 2 games with the Broncos, 2 games with the Raiders. Those were horrendous offenses with horrendous offensive lines. And he was able to put a really good performance against a good 49ers defense where he threw for nearly 400 yards. And like I said, he's playing behind an elite offensive line. He has an elite play caller. He's playing at home. And then you have this Patriots team that their offensive line is a problem. I mean, Will Campbell is a problem.
Yeah.
And you have Nick Bonito who can fully take advantage. And the Patriots, look, not only have the Patriots had a really easy schedule, they've been extremely lucky. I've mentioned this before. During the regular season, they've recovered 73% of their fumbles. Their opponents lost, let's see, they recovered, hold on, let me pull up. They recovered, I'm sorry, they recovered 12 of their 20 fumbles and of their own fumbles, and 10 of their opponents' 14 fumbles. So they were extremely lucky in fumbles. And guess what? That percentage is held in the postseason. They've been really lucky with fumbles. Go back to last week and fumble recoveries. Fourth downs, they were 73% on fourth downs. Their opponents, 33%. And again, this is against one of the easiest schedules in the league. And then so far in the playoffs, they're 67% on fourth downs. Their opponents are 40. So don't be shocked if, there's a couple bounces, a couple fourth downs that go Denver's way. But I would argue that Denver has a massive advantage in the trenches on both sides of the ball, and they're playing at home, and I just can't get to this number. So, yeah, I'm going to plant my flag on the Broncos plus 5.5. Could be a nice lead-in to Evan's primer, because I believe this would be maybe something in the 70s, but this would be the largest home dog in conference championship history, Evan.
Well, let's bring him on. Evan's Tuesday Primer starts right now, and we'll start with that. Go and check it out, actionnetwork.com or on the Action Network app. The Conference Championship Primer, biggest home dog in conference championship history.
Yeah, by far too. Right now, 5.5 point dogs. So since the merger, it'd be the largest home dog. And then 1968, we had a larger one, but I believe seeding back then was just kind of randomized. So you had like a home team that just wasn't as good in that spot. So really, since we've had seeding, this is kind of unprecedented. And then you have this stat. So the Bears closed at 3.5 last week, but there were some 4s out there. And when the line closes +4 or higher, home dogs 4+ points, 9-0 against the spread last 50 years in the playoffs. And you count the Panthers who covered against the Rams. So this line massive. I'm with Stuck. I kind of like the Broncos in this spot. I just feel like Peyton will be figuring things out, coming with schemes, and the Patriots don't have a lot of film to go off of, which is difficult.
It looks like we hit a resistance point at 6. I was shopping around to see what other books or what they were offering. We hit 6 with Denver for a moment. That came back down across the board to 5.5. Same thing for the other game that we haven't talked as much about because all of our plant the flags are on the AFC Championship game. But the Rams got up to 3 and now are 2.5 in most places that you look, including on DraftKings. Now, part of that could also be injury related because Charles Cross is questionable. Sam Darnold's still on the injury report. He was last week. He's probably going to play. Zach Charbonnet out for the year. So all things that you should be aware of here. Have you seen the same sort of market resistance, Evan, as you've looked up and down these lines and how it pertains to what you've done?
Yeah, open 1.5. It just I don't see this game being a 3-point spread. Like I just don't see the necessity to be giving 3 full points to the only duo who has experience in this situation. Like it just kind of doesn't make sense when, especially when you look at the matchups. Like the last game, the Rams dominated that game. Like ignoring the final result and rewatching it, it was complete domination until you had like a late game flip.
I mean, think of the
really,
2-point conversion. Without that fluky like pickup of incomplete
correct.
pass, the Rams win, have the 1 seed, and they're hosting this game.
Oh,
But
I
to be fair
forgot
as
about
well,
that.
to be fair as well, the Rams have been kind of, I don't want to say overvalued in the market, but like they are 0-2 against a spread in the playoffs. So I mean that doesn't matter this week when you're underdogs, but I mean being in that spot, I mean, they're the only team in history to not cover wild card and divisional and still be here in the conference championship. And then third straight road game too for the Rams, which is always a difficult task. Regular season playoffs, the numbers are really tough when you have to do that. It's 38% since 2002 regular season or postseason. And then when you get to the playoffs, 12-30, which is not great numbers.
Are you worried about Sam Darnold at all?
I mean,
Yeah,
oh yeah,
for
you
sure.
go first, go Stuck.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely like the Rams have a better offensive line, better receivers, better quarterback. The Seahawks clearly have the better defense, but I think that like they can get pressure too. And we've seen Darnold make like he should have his pick should have ended it took a punt return. His pick should have ended the second game. It was an awful pick. He threw a million picks in the first meeting. And the Rams can get pressure, and that's when Darnold really melts down. And this offense has not been great for a month and a half. It just gets masked because their defense scores, their special teams score, and they go up so big on teams. But this offense has kind of been figured out a bit. I mean, even if you remove garbage time, if you remove garbage time since week 13, they're 27th in EPA per play, 15th in success rate, and they played the Panthers and the 49ers twice over the past 3 games. And the 49ers had like no defense. And yeah, the Rams dominated that game. I won a 3 in that game, basically. Like I don't even if it's like minus 120, I'm fine with that too. That's what I'm waiting for because you go back, I bet the Seahawks +1 in the first meeting. Well, in the second meeting in week 16. It closed -1, -1.5. Dead wrong side. Dead wrong side. The Rams should have won that game. They dominated that game. 581 to 415 yardage edge. And that's even with the Seahawks playing from behind. And there's they had no Adams, no Dotson, no Lake on the defensive end, and the Seahawks were fully healthy. So you're going to tell me now this should be 3. Now, I get like it's worth noting the Seahawks have a special teams edge, big special teams edge, and the situation isn't great, right? It's your third straight road game after overtime on right like and then the Seahawks had a bye and then a laugher where they didn't have to exude anything and they get to stay at home. So like situationally, but we've only seen over the past 20 years 2 teams after an overtime game on the road go on the road again. And both those teams, I mean, it's a sample size of 2. Both those teams rolled the next week. So they dominated the next week. McVay's only had 3 straight road games one time. Came back in 2018. They won by 38. And in that season, the Patriots beat the Rams in the Super Bowl. So maybe that's a sign of things to come. But yeah, I just want a 3 in that game. But to answer your original question, Kendra, I think we certainly have to be worried about Darnold here against the pressure of the Rams, especially if the Seahawks left tackle is out and their backup is banged up too. So that could certainly be a major issue in that game. So yeah, I think it's natural to I think it makes sense. It's logical to worry about Darnold. But to Evan's point, the Rams haven't been playing since that meltdown against the Seahawks. It's just every week something is off, right? Like the defense gets shredded, or like last week Stafford didn't look right. So there's just been something off with the Rams, and like the Seahawks kind of keep ascending with that defense just seemingly getting better each and every week. But Darnold could certainly melt down here with a couple of turnovers that end up costing Seattle the game.
We've seen last week, Evan had it where when Sam Darnold's favored by a touchdown or more, he's actually been really good against the spread. What about in tight game situations as far as the thinner spreads, 2.5, 3? Is that when trend wise we should be concerned about backing Sam Darnold?
I can look at those numbers right now as I'm reloading my screen, but to look at Stuck's point as well, you look at EPA per play since week 10. The Patriots are first offensive EPA per play. The Rams are second. The Seahawks are 19th. So if you just look at how that's rolled recently, like I just think either of these teams can be off when there's usually consistency when a team makes a conference championship, and you're just not getting that this year. So I just find it really fascinating that you've got both of these teams in this spot because Seattle like really just hasn't needed to be that type of team. Like it hasn't mattered for them, which intriguing nonetheless. So Sam Darnold career against the spread when the spread is 4 or less either direction. I mean, pretty decent. He's 27 and 25, but that just takes a lot of teams. In fact, when he's with Seattle, he's 7 and 3 against the spread. So he's been pretty decent in that spot. And even if you take in Minnesota, it's 13, 8 and 1. So covering numbers either direction, not terrible.
Yeah, good stuff. Go and check it out, actionnetwork.com or on the Action Network app. It's Evan's Conference Championship Primer. To recap our Plant the Flag picks presented by DraftKings, Kendra has the Broncos plus 5.5 against New England. Stuckey, Broncos plus 5.5 against the Patriots. And I am on the Patriots Broncos first half under at 20.5 points. Those are our Plant the Flag games presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. That'll do it for today's episode. Special thanks to our producers, David Payne and Gifford Gould. By the time we come back on Thursday, we'll have a play on Seahawks Rams. A lot more to dive into as far as that game goes and which side we eventually land on between the Seahawks and the Rams. Go and check out the Action Network YouTube page where we will, of course, be back on Thursday with our official plays in the conference championship games, nominate our 2 kings and a queen parlay, and all that good stuff. For Kendra Middleton and Stuckey, I'm Brandon Kravitz. We'll see you next time here on The Favorites.